Well, good evening. And welcome to our Tenebrae service. This year is special for a couple of reasons. One is we've not been able to have one of these services for some time in person. So welcome to that. We're really glad to be here with you all. The other reason it's really special is that in this Lenten season, our youth asked, how might we serve the church as a part of our Lenten discipline? And this was one of the ways they came up with to serve the church, was to host our Good Friday service. And so probably not appropriate to applaud at a Good Friday service, but maybe in our hearts we could be applauding our youth for their hearts and where they're at. And we learned about Good Friday and this particular service, Tenebrae, the service of shadows, last Sunday at youth group. And now they're going to be leading this after I just give these few introductory words. So tonight's service, you are invited to experience the story of the Passion as it's retold to us from John's Gospel. Unlike much of Christian worship, this service is not designed to bring us joy, but to invite us into a deeper experience of the cross. And as such, we ask tonight that you enter this time quietly, contemplatively, that all of our cell phones are hopefully silenced for this service, and that our hearts are ready to receive whatever it is that God's Spirit is going to do for us this evening as we remember the cross. In this service, unlike others, we don't have a benediction or a blessing. We actually will have the final reading, the door will slam, and we will depart in silence. I'd invite you to keep that silence even after service for a period of time, maybe for your drive home just to reflect, or maybe for the remainder of the evening if you feel called to do so. And we do this service obviously for the glory of God, and so to God be the glory for it. I'm going to invite Luke up now to call us to worship, and then we'll lead our introductory hymn. Luke?
John, Mom, I feel better. Sorry, guy.
God forbid that I should boast of anything
but the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ.
In him, his salvation, life, and resurrection from the dead.
By him we are redeemed and set free.
May God be gracious to us and bless us.
And make his face to shine upon us.
So for whatever reason, it was really important to our youth that we had kind of a call and response song. So this came to my wife. It works. I'd invite you to repeat after me as our youth are going to be doing. So let them lead you tonight.
So shall
When he had finished praying, Jesus left with his disciples and crossed the Kidron Valley. On the other side, there was a garden, and he and his disciples went on into it. Now Judas, who betrayed him, knew the place, because Jesus had often met there with his disciples. So Judas came to the garden, guiding a detachment of soldiers and some officials from the chief priests and Pharisees. They were carrying torches, lanterns, and weapons. Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out and asked them, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "I am he," Jesus said, and Judas the traitor was standing there with them. When Jesus said, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. Again he asked them, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they said. Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. If you are looking for me, then let these men go." This happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. "I have not lost one of those you gave me."
Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his ear. Jesus commanded Peter, "Put your sword away. I shall not drink the cup the Father has given me." Then the detachment of soldiers with the commander and Jewish officials arrested Jesus. They bound him and brought him to the first Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas. The high priest that year, Caiaphas, was the one who had advised the Jewish leader that it would be good if one man died for the people. Simon Peter and another apostle were following Jesus. Because this apostle was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into high priest's courtyard. But Peter had to wait outside at the door. The other disciple, who was known the high priest, came back, spoke to the servant girl on duty there, and brought Peter in. "You aren't one of this man's disciples, too, are you?" she asked Peter. He replied, "I am not." It was cold, and the servants and officials stood around a fire they had to keep warm. Peter also was standing with them, warming himself.
Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. "I have only spoken openly to the world," Jesus replied. "I have taught in synagogues or at temples, where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who have heard me. Surely they know what I said." When Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby slapped him in the face. "Is this the way you answer the high priest?" he demanded. "If I say something wrong," Jesus replied, "testify as to what is wrong. But if I spoke the truth, why do you strike me?" Then Ananias sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Meanwhile, Simon Peter was standing out there, warming himself too. So they asked him, "You aren't one of his disciples too, are you?" He denied it, saying, "I am not." One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him. "Didn't I see you with him in the garden?" Again, Peter denied it, and at the moment the rooster began to crow.
Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the place of the Roman governor. By now, it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanliness, they did not enter the palace because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate came out to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" "If he was not a criminal," they replied, "we wouldn't have handed him over to you." Pilate said, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." "But we have no right to execute anyone," they objected. This took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked, "or did others talk to you about me?" "I am a Jew," Pilate replied. "Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it that you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," replied Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into this world was to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. With this, he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, "I find no basis to charge against him, but it is your custom for me to release one prisoner at the time of Passover. Do you want me to release the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "No, not him. Give us Barabbas." Now Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. Would you please stand and join in singing "Sacred Head Now Wounded"? It's number 98 in the blue hymnal or on the screens behind me.
Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They clothed him in a purple robe and went up to him again and again, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they slapped him in the face. Once more Pilate came out and said to the Jews gathered there, "Look, I am bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no basis for a charge against him." When Jesus came out wearing a crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." As soon as the chief priests and their officials saw him, they shouted, "Crucify, crucify." But Pilate answered, "You take him and crucify him. As for me, I find no basis for a charge against him." The Jewish leaders insisted, "We have a law, and according to that law he must die, because he claimed to be the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid, and he went back inside the palace. "Where do you come from?" he asked Jesus, but Jesus gave him no answer. "Do you refuse to speak to me?" Pilate said. "Don't you realize I have power either to free you or to crucify you?" Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." From then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jewish leaders kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar." When Pilate heard this, he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judge's seat at a place known as the stone pavement, which in Aramaic is Gabbatha. It was the day of preparation of the Passover. It was about noon. "Here is your king," Pilate said to the Jews. But they shouted, take him away, crucify him." "Shall I crucify your king?" Pilate asked. "We have no king but Caesar," the chief priests answered. Finally, Pilate handed him over to be crucified.
So the soldiers took charge of Jesus, carrying his own cross. He went out to the place of the skull. There they crucified him, and with him 2 others, one on each side, and Jesus in the middle. Pilate had noticed, prepared, and fastened to the cross. It read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of Jews." Many of the Jews read this sign, for the place where Jesus had crucified was near the city. And the sign was written in Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. The chief priests of Jesus protested to Pilate, "Do not write the King of Jews," but that this man claimed to be the King of Jews. Pilate answers, "What I have written, I have written." When the soldiers crucified Jesus, they took his clothes, divided them into 4 shares, one for each of them, with the undergarment remaining. The garment was seamless, woven in one piece from top to bottom. "Let's not tear it," they said to one another. "Let's decide by lot who will get it." This happened that the scripture might be fulfilled that they said, "They divided my clothes among them and cast lots for my garments." So this is what the soldiers did. Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there and disciples whom he loved standing nearby, he said to her, "Woman, here is your son." And to the disciples, "Here is your mother." From that time on, this disciple took her into his home.
Later, knowing that everything had now been finished, and so the scripture would be fulfilled, Jesus said, "I am thirsty." A jar of wine vinegar was there, so they soaked a sponge in it, put the sponge on a stalk of the hyssop plant, and lifted it to Jesus' lips. When he had received the drink, Jesus said, "It is finished." With that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Now, it was the day of preparation, and the next day to be a special Sabbath. Because the Jewish leaders did not want the bodies left on the cross during the Sabbath, they asked Pilate to have the legs broken and the bodies taken down. The soldiers therefore came and broke the legs of the first man who had been crucified with Jesus, and then those of the other. But when they came to Jesus and found that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. Instead, one of the soldiers pierced Jesus' side with a spear, bringing a sudden flow of blood and water. The man who saw this has given testimony, and his testimony is true. He knows that he tells the truth, and he testifies so that you also may believe. These things happened so that the scripture would be fulfilled. Not one of his bones will be broken. And, as another scripture says, they will look on the one that they have pierced. Later, Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate for the body of Jesus. Now, Joseph was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly because he feared the Jewish leaders. With Pilate's permission, he came and took the body away. He was accompanied by Nicodemus, a man who earlier had visited Jesus at night. Nicodemus brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, weighing about 75 pounds. Taking Jesus' body, the two of them wrapped it, with the spices, in strips of linen. This was according with the Jewish burial customs. And at the place where Jesus was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb, in which no one had ever been laid. Because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and since the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there. Would you please join in singing "When I Survey the Wondrous Cross"? It is number 101 in your blue hymnal and on the screens behind me.
My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me? So far from my cries of anguish? My God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer. By night, but I find no rest. Yet you are enthroned as the Holy One. You are the one Israel praises. In you, our ancestors put their trust. They trusted you, and you delivered them. To you, they cried out and were saved. In you, they trusted and were not put to shame. But I am a worm, not a man, scorned by everyone, despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their heads. He trusts the Lord, they say. Let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. Yet you brought me out of the womb. You made me trust in you, even at my mother's breast. From birth, I was cast on you. From my mother's womb, you have been my God. Do not be far from me, for trouble is near, and there is no one to help. Many bulls surround me. Strong bulls of Bashan encircle me. Roaring lions that tear their prey open their mouths wide against me. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart has turned to wax. It is melted within me. My mouth is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. You lay me in the dust of death. Dogs surround me. A pack of villains encircles me. They pierce my hands and my feet. All my bones are on display. People stare and gloat over me. They divide my clothes among them and cast lots for my garments. But you, Lord, do not be far from me. You are my strength. Come quickly to help me. Deliver me from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dogs. Rescue me from the mouth of the lions. Save me from the horns of the wild oxen.